Hey guys, this is Sam Mis-soum. This video is in response to Miss Sunshine Daniels' post today on one of my videos. She had a bunch of questions, and Sunshine, I want to let you know that I want to thank you for first asking the questions you asked. I know at the end of your comment you said you're sorry to have so many questions, but I actually encourage that because, as you explained, you don't take choosing your candidates lightly, and I think that's the responsible thing to do and the prudent thing to do. So I encourage you to ask more, dig more, criticize, critique more until you feel good with who you're voting for, but more importantly, why you're voting for who you're voting for. And there's a common theme throughout my campaign, and it's basically we can always concentrate on the what, when, where, and how of life and of how and of everything, but the most important factor should be why. Why is it you do that you do? Why is it that you believe what you believe? And in this instance, why is it you're going to vote the way you're going to vote? So I hope this helps. But I'd like to make a video response, as I said, to the other questions you brought up, and hopefully this is more helpful and more authentic. As you know, I just got home from work. The wife was a little sick, but straight from the horse's mouth, I guess. So anyhow, to get started, I thought it was funny you said your motto sounds very close to Make America Great Again, which is not a positive tone to set with Democrats and independents. Nearly half of registered U.S. voters, and I think maybe close to 60-ish% of Oklahomans. Where's the LOL button? Because Make Oklahoma Great and Prosperous is somewhat of a more positive, realistic take and bent on Make America Great Again. And why I say that is it's a slight different, it's a different take, it's a different perspective, it's a different attitude, but also it's not derogatory. When I say to make Oklahoma great and prosperous, what I'm referring to is the fact that Oklahoma and you are the same. They're synonymous. So as an elected official, one would work for the interest of Oklahoma, but what does that mean? Oklahoman corporations, Oklahoman private interests, Oklahoman, et cetera, et cetera. But I wanted to kind of, narrow down to you as in the voter, the citizen, the workforce, the labor force. And what I mean by great is, when I say make Oklahoma great and prosperous, is because there's only one concern and priority for any elected official, and that is to make their citizenry the greatest ever and prosperous. Because if you're not making your fellow Oklahoman or your fellow American prosperous, great, educated, healthy, then why are you in office? And that might sound like common sense, but a lot of elected officials now are all about enriching themselves, and in the most literal of senses, as we can see with the current administration and current cabinet members. I mean, even our own homegrown, or whatever you want to call it, Scott Pruitt, former Attorney General for the state of Oklahoma. It just comes out now that he was paying his own self for campaign expenditures, or using campaign funds to pay himself for things that really weren't related to the campaign, to the tune of close to $60,000-$70,000. I saw some total about somewhere around $130,000 as well. Correct me if I'm mistaken. So in that sense, who is he serving? Was he serving Oklahomans? Was he serving his own pocket? Was he serving his own interests? We all know the story on Scott Pruitt, so I don't have to go into more detail about that, but you get my gist. So yeah, it's a fun, light take on what I think currently is a very boneheaded approach. Making America great again. America has always been great. It doesn't, and it's getting greater by the day, but it's becoming greater because of our diversity, because of our values, principles, and shared morals. It doesn't need to be great again. Great again to what? To what age are we hearkening? To what era are we hearkening to? I mean, there are dog whistles there, and you and I know that very well. So hopefully for other voters and other future supporters of my campaign, I hope they don't come to a conclusion anywhere near to what you may have suspected. And I think after this explanation, I think you'll agree with me that not only is that appropriate, but I think my little motto slogan is very fitting and appropriate for what I seem to support and what I feel like a lot of left of center and moderate people, Oklahomans, would be just A-okay with. So let me get into your next question. What are your thoughts on healthcare and okay cuts? I always think it's cowardly when politicians take the easy way out. And what I mean by the easy way out is they get an axe and they axe the easiest parts of society, of the social contract. So that social contract is, providing opportunity in the workforce, providing opportunities for education, but also providing opportunities for us to stay healthy. Because, I mean, it's like a sports car or a car. If you don't change your oil, if you don't keep the engine healthy, you're not getting anywhere. You can't get to work. But why don't we think of the same thing when we think about human beings, Oklahomans? That healthcare is like maintenance, a human mechanic shop, a human car shop. If we don't take care of the human, then who's going to be there to work and provide value for their family, provide value for their community, provide value for their family? I always think of families being mini economies. And what I mean by that is, for example, my wife and I, we just got married. We're hoping to have kids soon. But if you think of our mini economy, you think that I work hard, I make my money. With that money, my wife goes and spends or thinks about other projects we should do in the house. Should we have, there she is looking at me, but anyways, then she spends that money. Hopefully, when we get around to bringing another Mis-soum into this world, that creates other buying opportunities for services, products made in Oklahoma or serviced by Oklahomans, like doctors, nurses, radiologists, et cetera, et cetera. Going to the baby food, baby clothes store and whatnot. So, like I said, not to get off topic, but like I said, it's cowardly when not only do elected officials cut healthcare, but they cut healthcare for the people that are most in need and most at risk of not having the best healthcare. So, I think it is a fundamental right to have access to healthcare, and I think it is even more so if you are gainfully employed, if you are gainfully employed and you are contributing to the betterment of this society and this state. So, not comparing humans to cars, but let's take care of our, our engines and our interiors and exteriors, and let's expand the mileage on ourselves, increase longevity, increase the quality of life. Quality of life is not just having a low cost of living, but it's also enjoying the fruits of today's modern technological advancements in health, in science, and education. So, anyhow, let's go to the next question. We're already 10 minutes in, and I thought this would be a 5-minute video. So, I apologize for my verbosity and tendency to go on and on. But I think your long question deserves a thorough and long response. So, you ask about the U.S. federal budget being spent on defense and weapons. I don't want to offend anybody, but sometimes I don't think the word should be called defense. We have not fought a defensive war in a very long time. Wars of foreign expedition and conquest should not be happening. I don't want to go into too much detail, but I don't think it's a priority for us to occupy countries in the Middle East with no checkout date. I don't think it is prudent to throw good money over, over bad, or however the saying goes, into defense projects that somehow always fund companies that are the biggest contributors to politicians. I mean, is that just by coincidence? So, when Lockheed Martin or General Dynamics or Boeing, spend so many $1 million a year for X, Y, and Z candidate, and then X, Y, and Z candidate who is on this defense committee, then just, blindly, blind stamps or rubber stamps every financial request and contract that they want. That's just not right. That is irresponsible. What's the word called? Stewardship of our monies, of our hard work, of our future. I mean, if we keep taking money from education and from healthcare, and finding really horrible excuses that for some reason the masses of people seem to accept or nonchalantly ignore, and then we divert those funds to fund super projects that never end in faraway lands that not only do we ever see or benefit from, but are we really even better in bettering those people's lives? These are all legitimate questions. So I appreciate you bringing that up. I don't know what the Department of Labor here in Oklahoma could do about it, but as a general philosophy, I think you should know who and what I support, why I am, why I believe the way I believe, and I think we fall in line as well. Do you approve of those that we have started? I think that was basically answered in my previous ramble or rant. There are wars of necessity. Those wars of necessity are wars of defense. When the territorial integrity of the United States is at risk by another opposing, harmful intending force. It's just one of those things where the idea of preemptive wars should never be even uttered again by an elected official, especially at the highest levels. And I'm referring to the war in Iraq. Same thing with Afghanistan. I remember Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld saying, or pointing to some drone video making fun of Afghan fighters on camels and saying, hey, well, look at what our Tomahawk cruise missiles took out today, their elite force. But we were laughing then, but today Afghanistan is still in shambles. The government that we support and back through our intelligence services, as well as through proper diplomatic channels, they are outright, corrupt. They lots of corruption, lots of bribery, lots of score settling between their tribal society, using our forces as a third party, mercenary force to take care of their doing or their end goals, when those goals may not always line up with ours. So, and I could go on to talk about Libya, which I now, in retrospect, think Obama was mistaken about. I could go on and talk about how our current, the current person in the White House, talks about North Korea as if we're talking about, playing in a sand lot, and we're just going to nuke them and this and that, and then wants to get a Nobel Peace Prize when he, just keeps on blabbering about things that haven't even happened yet. So I think you can tell my malcontent or discontent with the current state of affairs, at least for sure nationally, but as well as locally and statewide here in Oklahoma. Now, you mentioned the education system. How do you propose changing that? I used to live in Georgia way back when. I have family in Massachusetts. They have good education systems. They're not on Mars or Jupiter. They're just down the road here. It's a 12-hour drive to Atlanta from Tulsa. It's a 2-hour flight to Boston. Why don't we learn from those leaders? I mean, there's no shame in asking for help. There's no shame in copying other successful systems. Let's look at what Boston did with their public school system, with their state college system. Let's look at Georgia, what they did with their lottery system, what they did with their state universities and the Hope Dream Scholarship Program. Let's look at programs that worked. I'm not saying let's go to France or Denmark or Norway and copy the leftist socialist regimes, the Bernie Sanders regimes, and they like to mock us and Bernie Sanders and the Clintonites and the Obamas for thinking out loud like that. We're just going to go down the road. Let's go, let's go to a Republican state. Like I said, Georgia, Republican state. They have a great education system. Mitt Romney, Republican governor of Massachusetts, oversaw great health care in his state, great education system in his state. Let's see what he did. These are both right-wingers, right? Hey, if it works, it works, no matter what branding it has. But if you were to ask me, not only would I want to emulate other popular or successful systems and make them better, but I'd also want to look into ensuring a certain level of technical vocational training for people here in Oklahoma. So we don't all have to have 4-year college degrees. I myself have a materials engineering degree. Maybe Joe and Bob and Sally don't want to be an engineer to get the big bucks. Maybe they don't want to be a doctor to get the big bucks. Maybe they don't want to go to law school to get the big bucks. But I'll tell you something else that gets big bucks and can be done for much cheaper: being a plumber. There is no shame in being a plumber. There is a lot of pride in the pay they get. Sometimes they get paid better than engineers if they can man the shop and build their clientele list and electricians do very well. People that work in welding pipelines. These are all practices and trades that don't need a 4-year degree. You can go 2 years of vocational school and get certification and training that will put you on a career path that will make you succeed. So I think the old notion that get your 4-year degree and you're set for life, that's not true anymore. I was lucky. I was hard-headed enough to do engineering. I was hard-headed enough to get my master's degree in finance. I'm even contemplating a law degree or a government degree. But that's because those are personal ambitions and aspirations that I want to do for myself. And I know that there's more to a diploma. There's more to just having a degree from a good school, and that is knowing what to do with your hands, knowing how to apply yourself, how to market yourself, how to branch out, how to network, and so forth. So, and I could go on and on. Actually, education is probably my number one policy point, and you'll see that on my policy outline page or POP that I will be posting soon. But education is my number one concern, I would say. I think it is a damn shame that kids are now going to school 4 days a week. Really? Teachers are getting paid, very, very low compared to even neighboring states like Texas. Texas has the audacity to run billboards here in Oklahoma saying, hey, come down south of the border, come to Fort Worth or Dallas and we'll pay you, 30, 40, 50% more. That's embarrassing. That's just not right. To put our state in that kind of position, I mean, I know it's not a crime, but that's a crime against humanity in the utmost sense of the word. But I could go on, and if you'd like to discuss this more, I'm more than up for it. Let me pick up the pace here. I do agree that an increase on oil and gas co-taxes is a good idea to pay for education and healthcare and whatnot. You know why? Because the holes that we are in healthcare and education are as a result of tax cuts and tax benefits for the oil and gas companies in the first place. So it's almost that not only should we fill in the void and the damage that has been done by previous tax policy that favored the oil and gas companies, but we need to build off of that foundation. So I do agree. Sorry, I have a little allergy. Do you know things I did also? Yes, about food benefits. Again, just like healthcare and senior care, it's really cowardly to cut those that help the weakest and the poor. It's because it seems like it's like the du jour thing to do, the cool thing to do today with the current political climate. It's to lambast the poor, the weak, the people that need help, immigrants, people that want to better themselves but need, they have their bootstraps, they're pulling themselves up, but they need just a little push. I mean, nobody can say they did everything by themselves. I mean, me included, everybody included. And if you fail to recognize that you had help somewhere in your life, then you're not thankful, or you're not cognizant, or you're not aware of your surroundings and how you got to where you got. So yeah, let's look at the next thing. But what I do propose about that is, and I haven't done too much thinking about this, so this might be a bit cursory in a sense, but we need to get back to where we're not necessarily disincentivizing people to work, but we are doing just enough to give people that push to get reintegrated into the workforce, to help them with meals so that they can concentrate on getting enough money for a security deposit on a house, or on an apartment or a rental unit, and whatnot, to give them enough money, time to prepare themselves for interviews and getting a suit, and paying off immediate bills such as child related and health related and education related expenditures. Whatever that point is, whatever we need to do to get there, let's do it. And at the expense of things that we felt like we could just gift to big corporations just because they supported so-and-so candidate. I think the time for that is over. It should have been over a long time ago. Back from the financial crisis in 2008, we should have learned. But it looks like right as 2008 was rebounding and oil prices were going through the roof, we got drunk off of that immediate short-term gain. And another thing I harp about, and you'll see that, is we need to be smart. We need to think long-term. We need to be a nation in a state of delayed gratification seekers, and not instant gratification. It just doesn't make sense that we can, mortgage our future because of a momentary spike in oil prices ahead of long-term investments such as our infrastructure, our education, our healthcare. Sometimes you want to say it's common sense, but sometimes money and political pressure, it blinds people's common sense. So next question. You mentioned the private prison system. I think it's probably one of the biggest scars or negatives on our history as a country and as a state. Privatizing the punishment of unlawful offenders for corporations to benefit off of that. This goes back to political contributions and whether those contributions sway the policy proposals or policy decisions of elected officials. Again, it all goes back to the Oklahoma and make Oklahoma great and prosperous. And what I mean by that is exactly who do these elected officials serve when they do that? I mean, is it like what they say, they're keeping us safe by doing these sorts of things because we need more private prisons, et cetera, et cetera? Or is it because Corporation X is a private prison company that is supporting elected official Y and elected official Z, and therefore we, grease the skids for a good contract using our own taxpayer money? I would not want to live in I would not want to have a country or a state even graze the thought of that being okay. And so yeah, Oklahoma infrastructure. I just came back from Oklahoma City the other day, and I think it is apparent that while we are, doing construction, while things are being built, there is a need for more, especially on our back roads and roads that connect small communities. Just a moment, excuse me. It's been a long day, very unprofessional. I apologize. But yeah, and there you go. You said left abandoned. Yeah, a lot of small communities. Now, a lot of people will say, well, we need to build an infrastructure commensurate of the tax revenue that said region generates. But if that were the case, then there would be only roads in, I don't know, Tulsa or OKC, and we would just make everybody else use dirt paved roads. It doesn't make sense, because if you look back to the Eisenhower interstate system and early on in the 70s when America went on its infrastructure boom, in many cases, building an infrastructure into parts of the country that were not as developed as other parts of the country actually led to the future groundwork and foundation for future development to be made. I used to also live in Alabama, as I said, and they built interstates and roads out into the middle of nowhere, 4 lanes here, 4 lanes there, and you would wonder why. Well, why would they do that? Well, then within the next generation, you had companies coming. Why were those companies coming? Because now all of a sudden a Hyundai or Mercedes or Honda or Toyota or Kia could literally just set up shop and have a nice interstate system to connect their goods into the global economy. So I believe in building infrastructure to reach all of the arteries and joints of Oklahoma, and even if it's more than what is needed, because I'll tell you one thing, our population is growing, and the potential for future investment intellectually, economically, industrially, even socially, those opportunities will come, and when those opportunities come, we have to be prepared. People like to say, well, California or New York or Texas, well, they're just lucky. No, there is not. I don't believe in a thing called luck. I believe in being prepared for when opportunities arise, and those that are not prepared will fail to take advantage of opportunities as they arise. And Oklahoma is in a situation where we're doing just enough to get by with. Well, doing enough just to get by with is tantamount of, thinking you're going to, make $1 million in the stock market by living paycheck to paycheck. You're not going to get there. Other things have to be done. So I hope that makes sense, or, if that was a good example or not. But now, now when you say building more retail and sport arenas, I guess you are referring to the fact that a lot of those infrastructure plans are with tax incentives and our money. I think and this kind of piggybacks on the last answer, we need to build for the future. We need to build so that we are prepared for when the opportunity arises. So building retail or building a sports arena, that's a short-term game. hey, everybody loves football, or hey, everybody loves, X, Y, or Z. Let's build something to capitalize on that and gain from that. Okay, great. Maybe that team's going to be here for 5 years, 10 years, 2 years. I mean, here in Tulsa, we had the Tulsa Shock of the WNBA, and they left for Dallas. How many tax incentives were put in for them to be here, and then at the end of the day, they just packed up their bags and left. And who does that hurt, and who does that benefit? I'll tell you one thing: it did not benefit Oklahomans, or at least a majority of Oklahomans like you and I. So, like I said, let's build bridges and roads and things into areas that are populated, maybe aren't as largely populated, commensurate of what we want to build. But if we build a foundation, or if we build, a ladder to another level, metaphorically speaking, it may lead or tempt people to want to take their businesses out there to develop these other parts of Oklahoma. I mean, there is no reason that only Oklahoma City and only Tulsa are the two mega centers. Why is it that Texas has, San Antonio, Houston, Austin, Fort Worth, Dallas, et cetera, et cetera? That's because of a vision looking into the future that, maybe you don't see the end of the tunnel and what is at the end of the tunnel, but you see a light at the end of the tunnel. And if you keep digging towards that, and if you keep laying down bricks and roads and laying